So like in terms of you discovering, because I mean you're not from here, you're not born and raised. So how did it become a thing of like discovering a market here and being a thing of let's invest in this?
What, EFC, in
Yeah.
terms of getting involved in EFC? Dude, it was really a side hustle.
No ways.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I've always been, my career took me to different, away from sport.
Yeah.
I went to MTV Europe. I worked there in Camden Town. I came to South Africa originally in 1994 to study ethnomusicology and African music
Sure.
for 4 years. And I did my postgrad at UKZN and got published by Oxford University Press and had a really awesome time. But I had to go back and look after my family in Cornwall back in the UK. So I eventually leave after I graduated and moved back into television, so many different types of formats and codes and stuff. And then I moved back to South Africa in 2006 because my fiance was from South Africa, so we moved back here. And at that point I was launching channels for Sky. So, how it works is that you'd have, people would buy the uplink and a channel number from Sky, and then they need people to create graphics, train presenters, design sets, and get the channel working, whatever it was, a shopping channel or a news channel or whatever. So I would do that for clients in the States or in India or different parts of Europe, for example. And ETV found out that I was living in South Africa and that I was launching channels for Sky for a living. And they said, we're launching a news channel. Would you be interested? So the very next day I flew from Durban to Johannesburg for a meeting with Deborah Patter and Marcel Golding at ETV, and they asked me to help launch the news channel for them, and I stayed at ENCA for 13 years.
Sheesh.
Unfortunately, even though I was executive producer, as a foreigner, it didn't pan out in terms of my growth within the organisation. I think that's probably the most diplomatic way of putting it.
Did you feel stagnant?
Well, I got tired of training my managers.
Dang. Okay.
And going through retrenchment procedures
Yeah.
and stuff like that by people who you had trained
Yeah.
and repeatedly. So I got tired of that. And what happened was that ENCA launched ENCA.com. And the editor, a wonderful woman called Lynn O'Connor, said, look, I know you're into MMA and stuff. Do you mind writing some columns for the website? So I said, yeah, cool. And at that point, we had already been covering EFC. I'd been to EFC 1 at the Dome, and we had a sports show on ENCA called Sport Fan. And I suggested that we send a reporter to cover the EFC. So, I had assigned, a reporter to go and cover it. And I remember when Norman Vessel's won his belt, I think it was at EFC 5. I interviewed him there and then for the sports sweep, for the sports bulletin. And so even then, as soon as the EFC started, we were covering them because ENCA launched the same year as EFC, which was in 2009. We launched in April and May, and the first event at the Dome for EFC 1 was in November 2009. So I started writing, and I loved the writing. And then I created a podcast called The Clinch. It was the first combat sports podcast here. And then it became a vodcast. We started filming it. Then we took it into the studio, and then I started covering other promotions. Like I had a good relationship with one championship in Asia, so I went out to Macau, and then a couple of sponsors came on board. Thankfully, Monster Energy was really helpful and to fly me to the States and stuff to cover some UFCs. And there were some seminal fights I went to see. The Aldo McGregor fight in Vegas, I went to that, and I covered that for the channel. So I started doing stuff then from online and for digital, and then social. And then started reporting, doing live reporting into the news channel from overseas. And then I went to do some KSW work with them when Dricker signed for them. And then I did some Bellator work when they were at Wembley. So it just erupted from there.
Crazy.
Yeah, and it was just making yourself. It was basically a side hustle because I realized that. My career wasn't going as an exec producer for a television news channel. Was not going to go the way I wanted it to here, not even remotely. And I found growth in this side hustle to the point where at the beginning of this year, EFC said, can you join us full time? Up to that point, I had done commentary and done backstage reporting for the EFC since around EFC 40, EFC 50. I remember EFC 50 was at Sun City, I think, and I was doing paid work for EFC then. And then I've been commentating now for 5 years, I think. Yeah. Oh, that's fighting talk.